my channel. Today I'm going to talk about disagreement. This book that I have read, um, the title intrigued me, so this is why I bought it. Um, and I thought that it's not going to bring anything new, or it's just going to say how it's good to disagree once in a while. But I admit that after I finished reading it, I was still having questions in my mind, precisely because this book made me question everything that I thought I knew about um, thinking well, about brainstorming, about the advantages of taking decisions within a group. So, this book completely and utterly challenged me to think differently and to question why am I thinking the way I'm thinking, because as you'll be able to find out from my long review, the ideas and the beliefs that we are holding, um, most of the times they are not even ours. They are biased, and in the context of important matters like law, justice, and corporate decisions, this can be quite an important factor. This is the book, Charlan Nemeth, No, the Power of Disagreement in a World That Wants to Get Along. So, she is a professor of psychology. She's a professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of California, Berkeley. She lives in San Francisco. There she is. And the cover of the book is pretty rad. Like, this thing attracted me to this book because you can see here a bunch of crows, and this is the only crow that, will say no. I have taken quite a lot of notes from this book, and the way I will do my review will be by looking at my notes and partially looking in the book, and I will follow through every chapter and telling you what really impressed me and what stood out. And I'm a huge fan of Dale Carnegie, and his book How to Win Friends and Influence People was one of my favorite books. But this book is getting roasted in the Power of Disagreement. And I must tell you that if there's one thing that you should take from this book is the fact that learning to say no is an act of courage, because in a group, especially in a group setting, saying no makes you the ugly black sheep of the group. Nobody likes a dissenter, someone who likes to say no. And we live in a culture where we put people down when they disagree with us. So Charlan has 35 years of research in the field of dissent. So she has studied this, and she did a study in USA and in France in parallel that really blew my mind, but we'll get there. So first things first, in the introduction, the introduction is about fear, consensus, and love, dissent. This book is fundamentally about how we make decisions and judgments. So I would highly recommend this book to anyone who is in a leadership position, regardless of the field. You can be a professor, you can be a top CEO, you can be a trader, you name it. You can be a mother, you can be a father, but if you're in a leadership position, this book will help you make better decisions, hopefully. So, in the introduction, the interesting thing about making decision is the fact that we make poorer decisions and think less creatively when we adopt the majority perspective. A lot of the times, maybe even in schools, this thing happened to you. You gathered up in a group and you summoned all of the creative juices and you thought, okay, if we're going to collaborate and be in a group, we are going to take better decisions. This is a myth. This is a myth. You actually end up making less creative decisions and you just follow up the norms. And the most insidious aspect of consensus is the fact that it shapes the way we think. So once you know that the other 5 people in a group agree with you, then you're heading towards the dangerous path of just average, and you get tunnel vision when you take decisions in a big group. And the issue with groups is that they often arrive at consensus too soon and not for the good reason. So if most people share the same opinion on a matter and they gather up and there's like the majority already, it's like, you know that quote, like, I have made up my mind, don't confuse me with the facts. This is pretty much the perils of taking decisions in big groups, just because most of the people, they just want to agree. Everyone wants to agree. So thinking that you'll get really creative and innovative by having a group take the decisions, it's really not the good path to go. Something that really amazed me, because I thought that brainstorming in a group is perfect. It's false, and you will see the research backing up these statements. There is a quote. Let me search for it. Let's see. That I really liked from this book, in the sense that having the courage to disagree will liberate you. A form of liberation is to be less afraid to think differently from others, whether or not you decide to express it. You don't want to lose the ability to know what you know. Cults know the power of self-brainwashing all too well. So do abusive individuals. The grand hope of this book is that it will liberate you. One form of this is the liberation to speak up, being brave enough to tell the surgeon that he may be operating on the wrong limb, or to tell your boss that his latest plan has a fatal flaw, or to let your best friend know that she is about to buy an expensive dress that is ill-suited to her. Yeah. And the introduction ends with a very inspiring advice from Mark Twain. Whenever you find that you are on the side of the majority, it is time to reform or pause and reflect. So basically, in the introduction, Charlan states, and it's not a popular statement, that groups are very dangerous when it comes to good decision making. So it definitely crushed my bubble, and I think it crushed the bubble of a lot of people, because it is almost like universal in today's society to believe that if a group, if a majority takes a decision, it is automatically the good one. And this is the biggest danger. So allowing big masses of people to take decisions, it's really not good. Part one. So part one of the book, which will have a couple of chapters, is about the majorities versus troublemakers. Um, so first chapter is about the numbers, is about the fact that the numbers rule. So people follow the majority. We are social creatures. We want to belong. We don't like to disagree. We don't like to be perceived as, oh, he's the odd one or she's the odd one that always has something to tell. Like she never agrees. Like nobody wants that, almost nobody. And people can follow the majority as much as 70% of the time, even when the majority is wrong. I was blown away by the statistics. It's like 70%, like even if the majority is going towards like a cliff, like metaphorically speaking, most people will follow through. And this definitely explains, for example, if you think of communism, if you think of what a lot of evil leaders have done, I will not name them, but we all know them. They used the crowd, they used the group mentality, they used people that agreed, that got along with an idea and follow through, and they all followed, like almost self-brainwashing. So I'm trying to tell you that decision making in a group definitely has enormous disadvantages. Yeah. This principle of following numbers, it's called the 50 million Frenchman principle, an assumption that the truth lies in numbers. So it's, for example, if 10, like this shampoo has been used by 10 million people and they all said they loved it. So if you dare to say, okay, I didn't, yeah, nobody's going to believe you, unfortunately. And the desire to belong to a group, it's another thing that makes us agree to the norms of the group and make bad decisions. This is keep your head down principle. So unfortunately, it is true and it is relatable. And I think if we make the effort to think about at least one time in our lives when like our mind definitely thought otherwise, but our need to belong made us not tell the truth or not say what we really think, because we were afraid that we're going to be cast away, or I don't know, put on an exile island emotionally, socially, financially. You risk also to lose reputation when you want to disagree. Groups can be very ruthless, they can exclude very easily. We all know the power of peer pressure. And another statistics, which is similar with the power of the majority, 70% of employees don't speak up when they see problems. So this explains the abusive work environments that just continue to thrive because people lack the courage to say no and to disagree. There's a trick that you can do, and it's suggested by the author in this first chapter. So if you know, and I found this trick to be like really brilliant actually, but you really have to work on your inner discipline. So if you know that you're going to have a group meeting or that you have to reach a certain decision, so you know the facts, you have judged the situation, you have broadened your informational field, which is very important as you'll later see. A trick that you can do in order to make sure that nobody is manipulating you into taking the decision that they want is to make a commitment to a position prior to hearing the opinion of others, and preferably write it on a piece of paper. Experiments have shown that if we write down our opinion on something that we cannot erase it after, we have a more difficult time to change our minds. Not only that, but you're able to notice a shift in your thinking, and this will help you to become more self-aware, because if after a meeting you end up thinking completely different and someone manages and succeeds to completely wash your mind, you can like take that paper down and start to compare like what's going on. It can be possible the situation to be so like today is black and tomorrow is white just because some person told me this in one meeting. So it's very useful to make a commitment to your decision if you're very, very sure of your informations. It's very important, especially if you're going to go in a group. Chapter number 2. Even one dissenter makes a difference. So, it is enough in a group, and this was fascinating for me, utterly fascinating. So if we have a big group and we have one dissenter, like one person that just like this little crowd refuses to go along, but genuinely like that person has to truly believe in what they stand for, it is enough to shift the group. So this is why in big corporations or in politics or in fields where a sensitive information or something that could shift the game could cause a problem, this kind of dissenters or individuals are very rapidly cast aside or shut down or put to silence because they're dangerous. One single person in a whole big group that really believes their truth and they're willing to die for, they are very, very dangerous because they can make the group think through and really re-question their thoughts. So one single person can really change the whole entire group. Yeah. With any break in unanimity, the power of the majority is seriously diminished. So there is a very sensitive spot of groups. There is power in numbers, and the power of a group precisely is in the numbers, but there is one sensitive spot of the groups in the sense that if it lacks unanimity, if multiple people within those groups or just one is not sure, then the group can completely crumble. And this could be like a doorway towards shifting the mentality of that group. What's even more fascinating is that that person that dares to disagree in a group, it doesn't matter if that person is right or wrong. So even if a dissenter is wrong, and even if she's not an ally, she is of major value because she breaks the majority's power. So yeah, this was fascinating for me because it can definitely help you see any issue in perspective. Like especially like if you dare to raise your voice, or to raise your voice not in matter of tone, but raise your voice in matter of speaking up your truth, you might just gather up allies. And maybe you're wrong, maybe you're just talking nonsense, but at least something shifted in that group, like that harmonious we are all on the same side is disappearing. And this is very, very important because it's like removing the blinders. Yeah. There is a talk about the disadvantages of being a dissenter. They are rarely liked, they're easily hated. Um, it's quite a hardship to be a dissenter. You pay a price, so nobody likes you. Just imagine, yeah, nobody likes someone who doesn't want to get along. Our society has created the premises of people pleasing so much that daring to have an opinion of your own puts you in jeopardy, in serious jeopardy. Like, nobody likes you. And it takes an enormous courage to say no and to disagree. But again, backed up by a number of research and studies, when one person has the courage to be unliked and says their truth with the risk of being unpopular and hated and bullied, and yeah, you know what happens to dissenters. Um, that courage is contagious. So what do I mean by that? And what does the author says? It says that she gives examples of famous dissenters throughout history. Look at, for example, Mahatma Gandhi. Like, he had the courage to just say something that wasn't right, and that courage almost like transferred to other people like around him who also believed the same thing but didn't have the courage to stand up. So the idea is that you just need one person to be brave enough or crazy enough to stand up, and others might just follow. And I really love this quote that dissenters often free us to speak up. I'm pretty sure it happened to you, and as it happened to me and to a lot of people. Maybe you were in a meeting, in a group meeting with a lot of people, and there was a decision made, and maybe deep down in your heart you didn't agree with it, but you got along with it because everybody got along with it. But there was one person who disagreed, and maybe they were cast aside. But at the end of that meeting, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, and it happened to them, it happened to me, like, you go home and you think about, damn, she was right or he was right, and something starts to shift in you. And it's like, even if you didn't have the courage to speak up in that situation, maybe in a future situation, something in you just gets light up. It's like, I'm gonna have the courage that he had or she had in that meeting. It rubs off on you, and this is really really interesting. It is. And we could be very thankful to these black sheeps as they are seen in society today. The third chapter from part one is Dissent as an Art in Changing Hearts and Minds. Um, the author, she talks about a lot of famous dissenters throughout history. Galileo Galilei, Freud, Snowden, even Jesus. I was, I must admit that I laughed a bit on this one, but after really thinking through, like, yeah, Jesus was that person that really dared to do things differently. And even Freud, like, a lot of people thought that Sigmund Freud was crazy, that he dared to formulate a theory about the Oedipus, complex, and everyone thought he was a pervert and a crazy person. But even today's in psychology, people still study his theories. But he was thought to be crazy and a lunatic back in his days. What's very important, what's really really important and a key about being a dissenter, someone who disagrees, is to be one, authentic. So you really have to believe what is the things that you stand in for, in the sense that there are a lot of people that want to say no just because they want to rub someone the wrong way, or they just want attention. But they don't truly believe in what they are saying. Those will not go a long way. Those will not make any group change their minds. What is really important for dissenters is also to be consistent in his position. Why? Because when you put yourself in the position of not agreeing with the majority, you are extremely vulnerable. Like everyone, it's like, those signs with FBI wanted. It's like you could have that on your forehead because everyone wants to just shut your mouth. Like everyone wants for you to be quiet and go along. But if you just weaken your position, or you start to have doubts, or you start to be wishy-washy, it's not going to go down for you. You're not going to have any influence. You're going to look like you just want to disturb the group. So it's very important to be consistent and authentic when you disagree. So you have to disagree for a good reason that you truly believe in. It might not be the right one, and this is a really important thing. Like, you might be wrong, but if you're consistent and you truly believe in what you want, you will shift the group. At least you will make them be open to the fact that they might be wrong, or they might be approaching a situation from the wrong perspective. This is very, very important. And when these studies about how dissenters persuade start, so they started quite a while ago in 1969 by a Romanian Jew, Serge Moscovich. He started to study this, and he has found an intriguing thing that helped form this theory of dissent. He found out that when the minority was more correct but less consistent, they had no influence over the majority. So you can hold the truth in your hand and disagree. But if you're not consistent, and it's like, I'm gonna die for this, metaphorically, because I don't think anyone today would die for an idea, unfortunately, but if you hold to this, then you will be able to influence. If you're wishy-washy, and after 10 minutes of roasting and people bullying you will give up, then your dissent will have no value. It's like a whistle in the wind. Very, very interesting. So consistency is very, very important. And another thing that really blew my mind is the fact that dissenters, people who dare to disagree, they manage to change more minds in private than in public. What do I mean by that? What does the author mean by that? In the sense that, just as I told you, if you went to a big meeting, and there was one person who disagreed, but like nobody had the courage, and almost nobody has the courage to join a black sheep publicly. It's really, really hard. People do not want to associate themselves with someone who is like the black sheep, at least not at the beginning. Of course, if in the end you end up like Mahatma Gandhi or Freud, or like everyone wants to join you on the path of your success. But at the beginning, when there's no proof to you, when nobody has seen how consistent you can be, nobody wants to join you. Nobody wants to join you in your disagreement. But back in their minds, like when someone goes back home, they will reflect. And most of people, this is human nature, most people, they do not say out loud what they really think, but back in their minds, in their private space, and like in their privacy of their homes, most people are convinced by the ones who disagreed in public, but they will not agree. Just think of the meetings where there's a boss, and that boss is a really nasty person, but there are most of the employees just agree with him or her. but there's one person who is very sincere and open up in telling, hey, you're not a nice boss and blah blah blah. And everyone back home, like, they agree with that person. They are having an ally in their, but they do not admit it. So this is the power of the dissenters. It's a very secret power. They have the power to make people in their privacy, in the private environment, to change their minds. And there's still a power, because like, the battle is not fully won in the public only. A lot of the battles, the strategy battles, can be won in private. So this is very, very important. I really highlighted this idea and this quote, which pretty much sums up one core trait of the person who wants to disagree. And this is: compromise that suggests inconsistency makes a dissenter ineffective. So, the research suggests that consistency is more effective than compromise in changing minds. So, what does this mean? Again, here I struggled, because a lot of the times we hear this phrase, everything is compromise. You have to learn how to compromise. Everybody compromises. And it's so easy to buy into it and really believe that everywhere, like in relationships and at the workplace, like you have to learn how to compromise. And I was really blown away by the idea that compromise is really not so effective in changing people's minds, but consistently holding to a vision up to the very last minute is much more effective in convincing people, because at least, like, you prove consistency. And this I have found fascinating, and this can explain why the stubborn people, those that are so stubborn like a mule to hold on to their beliefs, even if they're wrong, they can manage to have success in changing people's minds in comparison with somebody else who is always eager to compromise, who is always like. And this is another key core of someone who wants to disagree. So really hold on to your horses, so sort of speak, and do not back down. Be consistent. This is really the key, because in the, like, on the long term, so someone who disagrees must think on the long term. So on the long term, consistency, like, it's your track record. So if in a big meeting, if in a big workplace, you are the one that always disagrees but never is consistent, nobody will take you seriously. Nobody. But if you are the one that always speaks up and stands on their ground, willing to pay the price of being unpopular, hated, bullied, whatever, you will shift things. You will definitely shift them. So there's the sweet spot, because I was like, okay, so no compromise sucks, and there's a sweet spot. And this is again a good strategy trick for anyone in leadership or anyone who wants to really shift a crowd. The sweet spot is to compromise in the last minute, because you appear consistent and flexible enough to achieve an agreement, but don't do it all the time. So it's true. Just think about one thing. If you want to achieve something from a person or from an organization or something, and you keep on like trying on the same person, and they always stick to their ground. No, this. But in the very last minute, after 1 year or 2 years, they are willing to shift just a tiny little bit. It's like, yeah. And it's like, you don't lose respect for the person, for the dissenter, because they have they have proven consistency, but they also like little tiny bit of flexibility, and that is the sweet spot. So you can budge a little from your position, but only after you have maintained it for long enough in order to portray consistency. This is a really key thing, because it's like, for me, when I have read this book, is like, this is strategy. This is like pure unadulterated strategy, and it's really, really vital. Yeah. So again, about strategy, also you have to be a really fine observer. If you tend to be the person who likes to disagree, or is just having the courage to disagree often, be a very fine observer of the majority. In what sense? Um, if you're looking for an ally, it is important to notice those in the majority who are unsure. It's very, very easy to notice when someone is unsure. It's very easy because they live little rooms, like their voice is not secure. They're like, I agree, but and that can be your spot. That can be your place of entry. Because someone who disagrees or wants to make a shift or wants to dare a group to think differently, they ideally need an ally. We all need an ally. So in a majority, if you manage to spot at least one person who is unsure, then you can definitely work like your magic or your strategy. And this is again a very vital detail, I would say. And just because a break in unanimity of a group will severely undermine the power of the majority. So I think this can be like really tricky psychological tactics, how to how to shift the group, and you have to play strategic. Like everything is strategy, including human interaction. Okay, so the part 2 of this book, after we have talked about the majority and the troublemakers, is about closed minds versus open minds. So what does she mean by that? So in the part 1, we have talked how to influence, how to persuade people. Groups are very good at persuading people, because persuasion is all about being fast, while convincing, the thing that the dissenter has to do, requires time. So this part is about the way we think, and in even more detail, it's about the quality of our thinking when we are influenced by majority or by minority. This was very fascinating for me, and the author has a lot of experience in court. She has studied how decisions were made in the court. She had done a lot of research around that, and it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting to for me to read how your mind can shift from one opinion to another if these two influence you. Like when you are in a minority, influenced by minority, the quality of your thinking is radically different than the quality of thinking when you are influenced by the majority. And this is something that I never thought about. So, chapter 4 from part 2 is about consensus narrowing thinking and killing rationality. So as she told us in part 1, groups want to reach to consensus fast. as fast as possible. Like, okay, we have met here. Let's come to an agreement. Okay, fast, bam, 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 solved. Best decision ever. Bye, bye. This is very dangerous. This is very, very dangerous. And this is something that cults have used a lot. Cult-like organizations use a lot the power of consensus because it's very fast. It almost makes people take a decision without even thinking. And this is something that can be used to manipulate huge masses of people. So there are very negative aspects of consensus. And this shows that the quality of your thinking when you are exposed to a group and to a majority is severely diminished. So you not only take bad decisions, but you just don't think right. And this made me really, really intrigued. So a couple of the negative aspects. Consensus stimulates the kinds of thinking that lead to the opposite of good decision making. We are biased in the information that we search and the alternatives we consider. Consensus even limits our ability to detect solutions that are right in front of us. And it also produces an intense gravity that narrows our reasoning and warps our perspective to such a degree that we are much less a rational actor. So we become narrow. It's just like tunnel vision. So I don't know if a lot of the organizations know about this, but in the current times, there are still like meetings that are happening with the idea that a big group, is automatically going to think better. And the studies of Charlan really blew me away, and her analysis on cults and self-brainwashing. I will not go into details, but she's mentioning the Jonestown cult. It was a whole debate around what happened to those people, about that cult leader that managed to brainwash so many people, and yeah, she analyzed the leader, and she realized that the power of that cult reside in the very early elimination of dissenters. So what's very important for cult people or cult-like organizations or people who want to brainwash you literally is for them to create a reality, an utopia, in which all of the information that you receive is actually very filtered and very, very controlled. So they control your reality. The bottom line is that whoever is controlling the channel of information that reaches you is controlling the way you think. And this is a really key information to get from this book. So whoever is controlling the information is controlling your way of thinking, and your way of thinking will automatically lead to some decisions. This is why it's a very dangerous vicious circle. And yeah there was another study that shocked me. So this author made so many studies. I definitely invite you to read her book, because she has done studies even like in different countries and different continents to see if some rules apply, if people are inclined to do the same. And she definitely validated her theories, and they blew my mind. So she did a study where a couple of students had to pick a couple of, oh, it's so complicated because it's like a study, and it's like there was a study in which the students were proposed some campus housing policies which were not very popular. And they had to, for example, these proposals included having mandatory curfews, segregating floors by gender. Yeah. So these students that participated, they were given um, the results of a survey showing that a majority of students favored the changes. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna let you complete this form, but before I let me tell you that another group of 80 people picked A, Y, Z. So in this sense, I kind of make you be biased towards that. But this is not the most shocking result of this research. The most shocking result was that they were also given uh, the other like 20% of students that did not favor the changes and the reasons why. And even the students that did not favor, like initially they did not favor the changes, when they were told that 80% did, they picked to see the reports from the 80%. They had the option to choose the other 20% to see, okay, someone is disagreeing just like me, let me see. But they were so like brainwashed that it's like they didn't even pick people to check the opinion of people that initially agreed with them in disagreeing. So this is the power of a group. Like, wow. So they wanted the detail, they wanted to understand the perspective of the majority. They showed much less interest in reading the other side of the issue, which, by the way, was their own position. This blew my mind. It's like, yeah, it can leave you speechless. It's also even like a bit scary, you know. Yeah, just someone mentioning, hey, the majority picked this, the majority picked like, and even if you have like that, this is why consistency is so vital, but it's so hard to achieve, because if you're bombarded with the majority does this, the majority does that, the majority picked this, and you're like, oh, but I didn't, but you know, and the desire to belong is so big that instead of allying with people that have the same beliefs as you want to know what the majority is picking and why. It was fascinating for me. If this wouldn't have been a research study, I would not have believed it, but it's research, so I believe it. So very important take from this chapter, that simply knowing the majority position is enough to shape and bias the search for information. We don't just follow the majority position, we willingly search for information that corroborates it. And we narrow our search, excluding other information, even information that would support our initial position. We become complicit in our own brainwashing by the majority. I was blown away. This is why I told you that this book completely changed how I see like decision making and group decision making, and you know, following the trends, or finding out the latest news, or what the majority does, or very dangerous path to go through, because it's like, yeah, you're self brainwashing. It's amazing. This is why I try to find an explanation, maybe just for myself, why a lot of the people that maybe reached, I don't know, oh, let's call them like genius ideas or something, like they reached some powerful genius ideas, they mostly did it in solitude. They were like not people persons, or they were like not so social, because now I can understand how the influence of a group or of a nation, like you belong to a nation, and the mentality of that majority rubs off on you and on your choices, on the things that you search. So I was thinking that maybe it really helps what I've heard Bill Gates do once in a while. He just takes like time off from society, time off from anything that can connect you with the majority, and really have time to sit with yourself and like ponder, like, what do I really think? What do I really want? What do I, it's like a lot of people make choices that they don't even like just because the majority does it. And this is something really, really scary. Yeah. Ah, I really like this quote. Taking only one approach often leads to repeating the same mistake. Yes, because you're using the same strategy. So if you're using the same strategy, it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 problems, uh, you will end up solving them in the same way. So you'll have more problems, like your problems will multiply because, yeah, they won't be solved. Mm, so this is an important detail that I have to specify because the narrow focus has been a has been receiving a lot of criticism in this book. The narrow focus, like the tunnel vision, the horse view. But there is an important mention that the author makes, and I think it's vital, that a narrow focus works only when it is accurate or when it is the only one that matters. So I'm thinking now of Einstein, like he has found like a good formula, or okay, this is the formula. So this is the good theory. I'm going to work just on that. So I'm going to focus just on that. Or think like of a painter. Like he knows his technique is right and he knows he wants to accomplish this painting. So he focuses just on that right painting. But see here, like the trick on narrow focus, it only works when you know you're right. You know you're right. And you know you're accurate and right. Because you can be right but inaccurate, or yeah. Another danger of consensus is that it makes it less likely that any one person will speak up if they notice a problem. It's true, especially in groups. Another study that the author made, I tell you, like, this book is filled with studies, like, but they're so complex that it's very hard for me to expose them like right here, but they're definitely worth reading. So one of her studies investigated the originality of thought as a product of exposure to a majority opinion. This was a very interesting idea for a study. So how original are your ideas if I put you in a group which holds the majority? How original will you be? Oh, yeah. And what happened? the You end up being less original. You are less original, you make more conventional associations, and you're just mediocre. You're just mediocre. So if I put you in a group and I want you to be original, I'm pretty much setting you up for failure. And this definitely blew my mind because I'm thinking about schools where, yeah, people are put in groups all of the time, like, let's brainstorm, it's the worst setting you can put someone in order to stimulate originality. So if you want people to be original, just don't put them in groups. Don't. Just divide those groups in subgroups or something, but big groups do not produce original ideas. And I was blown away. Definitely. Okay. A couple of tricks. I mean, I don't know, tricks. Let's call them strategies. A couple of strategies to prevent you from reaching consensus too fast, too soon. And yeah, to just avoid screwing yourself up on the long term, like real life, personal life, business, whatever. Search for information broadly, like have a very broad like field of information searching. Yeah, do not narrow your search, just resist that temptation. Okay. um, Take multiple approaches. So this is vital because, as I told you, like whoever controls the stream of information controls the way you think. So if you narrow that stream of information and you are also receptive to receive more information, it will definitely help you. And I think it's vital because we are like inclined to search only information which matches our perspective, you know. uh, Let me give it just pops into my mind this example. I can search on Google right now the benefits of eating donuts. We all know it's not so good, but if I want to convince myself that there is truth and the benefits of eating donuts, boy will I find those. Like I will, yeah, and I will feed myself with that information. I will like continue to eat the donuts because all of my Google searches have proven to me like it's good to eat donuts. But the only thing that I typed there are like the benefits of, so I my search was already biased. So it's very, very good to broaden it, but you have to be self-aware. I think one aspect that the author maybe does not touch in this book is the fact that a dissenter, someone who disagrees or just someone who wants to resist the crowd, they have to have this element, the psychological element of self-awareness. This is a key factor. Like, and I don't know, like I think this could be like the topic of maybe like a continuation of this book, because I think there is a a psychological profile of someone who dares to disagree, and it's not, I don't think it's for everybody. Okay, the fifth chapter from this part, the second part, dissent diversifies and strengthens thinking. So the latter part, we talked about the dangers of consensus, and now we can talk about the advantages of dissent and how it shapes our thinking. So the quality of our thinking is bad when we reach consensus, which is ironic. And the quality of our thinking is increasing when we are allowing dissent in our lives, when we allow disagreement. Yeah. So, when exposed to a dissenting opinion, we think more divergently than we would on our own. We do this whether the dissent is right or wrong. So, divergent thinking is creative thinking. I will not go into this because there's a whole chapter dedicated to this, but disagreement invites creativity. It's very, very important because oftentimes we associate a disagreement with conflict or with, just, something like nagging, someone dares to disagree, we can't have peace, but actually it invites a different type of thinking which has a certain type of quality. This is really, really important. And not only that, but dissent prompts us to actually reconsider our positions and contemplate alternatives. So it opens that gate of doubt. What if I'm wrong? What if my assumption is wrong? So it only takes one person to disagree with me or with you or somebody else, and it can open those doors of just doubt. Yeah. We become more open, more curious, and more likely to consider multiple perspectives when we are exposed to disagreement. Another study. So this woman made so many studies. She made another study, um, and the results again blew me away. That when individuals faced dissent, they had better memory for informational details. So again, I'm trying to sum up a whole experiment. So people were given a set of words to remember, like 14, yeah. And out of the 14 words, some were types of fruit, types of furniture, types of clothing, blah blah. On their own, they noticed, okay, there is a category of words within this big category. Um, but they were announced that another category of people, they found out there was a different category. Like, for example, in those 14 words, I realized 3 were birds. But I was told, okay, but somebody else noticed that 5 out of those words was in the category of furniture. And I'm like, huh, but I noticed the birds. What happens? So I was informed of that. The results are staggering. So the people that were personally notified of a dissenting position, like someone did not agree with you that there are like birds, like someone said, okay, there are words that are like in the tool category more. What happened? So as you have found this out, those who had learned of a disagreement position remembered more words the next time the experiment repeated. They remembered both more of the original 42 words and more words from the new list of 30 words involving completely different categories. They paid better attention to information. So there was physical influence over the capacity of their memory. I was like, what? So it can definitely, like, if someone disagrees with you, it can make you focus on something, and it can be beneficial. So it improved their memory, and I was like, wow. And this was like a short term benefit. Imagine having a disagreement friendly environments. Imagine which benefits could happen in those environments, how creative people would be, how would their memory work, what kind of ideas could they have. I was blown away. I was blown away. Again, she talks about being consistent. Um, Another advantage of disagreement, or name it as you want, it promotes better problem solving by stimulating the use of multiple strategies of routes to solutions. So, disagreement, this black sheep in our society, is actually making you more creative, is making you more resourceful. It's making you think of other ways when someone disagrees with you. And it like makes a lot of sense, because if you surround yourself with yes men, with people that yes, like they all agree with you, like what are you learning? Like, you are not even challenged. Like, it's boring and it does not stimulate you. But when there is one person, when that generally disagrees, like, it stimulates you. Like, there's something to that person. Like, I must get to the root of that, to the bottom of that. And it makes you want to find solutions. It's like when somebody says, okay, you can't build here, or you can't do that, and someone will find a way. Someone will find a way, a loophole or a strategy, or it, yeah. And it's all the merit of disagreement. People do not reach different strategies because they agree. people reach different strategies because someone dared to disagree. Yeah. The author says here that the most important takeaway from this book is the idea that dissent stimulates us to think divergently, to seek information and consider options in multiple ideas. Yeah, I definitely agree. Okay, there's a talk about, I'm not gonna enter this rabbit hole because it can be a rabbit hole. The case of Edward Snowden. I think it's very known to a lot of people. He basically told how there's no privacy in your data, and he released classified documents about the NSA surveillance system, and he became the most hated person. And yeah, Vladimir Putin pretty much saved his ass from being um, roasted in USA, but he took a risk and he was consistent. So there's a whole talk about the Snowden case, if that is of interest to you. Another benefit of dissent, it enables us not only to see different paths, but to shift from one path to another as needed. So look at disagreement as almost like a muscle that can train you to be flexible. So people who dare to disagree or are in environments in which disagreement is normal, as it's normal to disagree and we encourage it because we want to strive to become better and more original. Okay, those people are like Lamborghinis, able to swerve lanes really, really fast. In comparison, those who are stuck in the old ways, they are like an old raggedy car trying to just keep lane one. So there's a huge difference in thinking and in creativity and in the flexibility of choice in the end. Because when you are flexible and when you are disagreeing in your mind, you are creating choices. Like, I am not stuck to this. Like, I disagree. I think there's another way. And not only that, maybe after this way there's another way and then another way, and you can like swerve back and forth and do lane 1, lane 10, and like, and this definitely intrigued me a lot, because I thought, in my opinion, that dissent can be counterproductive. Like, it holds us like we don't progress, like and I'm pretty sure it happened to a lot of people, this idea, this feeling, that false feeling that someone who disagrees holds you like down, you know, it holds you down, it does not allow you to progress. And a lot of people think that consensus and reaching fast to a decision is the fastest way, but actually dissent can build up a sort of flexibility that will definitely change the game on the long term. This was definitely a new idea for me. One of my favorite quotes in the book, and I think it can sum up I don't know, the most creative people on this planet and the biggest achievements and maybe the source of all the money making. And the quote is this, and it's really, really short. A creative idea is one that addresses a problem. So a creative idea addresses a problem. So I think this is a brilliant quote, just because a lot of the times creativity is seen as something, I don't know, ethereal, something like I can't put my hands on it, like creativity. Or but actually, yeah, if you look back in history and if you look back at how money were made, like people who solved a problem on a big scale, they collected the rewards. Of course, this is debatable because a lot of the times they also planted a lot of problems along the way. But in the long term, yes, a creative idea, mostly likely it's one that solves a problem. Even art, like art And expressing art solved a problem for a lot of people, in the sense that maybe I can't put my emotions on paper or in a song, but somebody else does it for me, and I express myself through the talent of the other. So I really love this quote. Yeah. Mhm. Oh, so another another research. Probably I will bore you with this thing, but research, like, I love it, like when something is backed up by research. And this book is backed up by research like no one else I have read like in this year. So another study. If a person faced the minority opinion, remember the other study where they were told what the majority picked for the campus? They did another study to see what happens when you are exposed to what the minority picked. So the people that faced the minority opinion, they were told what the minority was picking, even when it was wrong, had more unique associations. Their associations were more original than those of a control group um, in the majority conditions. So basically, two groups within a group, someone like those people got told the majority, and the other they got told what the minority picked, and they were more original when the minority opinion was told. So the minority, when you find out what one that person does or those two people do versus what the other 1 million does, you get more original. Wow, really brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so there is a whole roasting in this book of the brainstorming concept. It definitely made me change my mind. So this author, I think she can be labeled as a true dissenter, because through this book, she did make me change my mind in some regards. And she talks about the brainstorming, the inception of the concept. It was started by Alex Osborne in the 1950s. There are 4 basic rules of brainstorming. I'm not going to get into all of them, but one of them is do not criticize. So it was taught in a lot of business schools, this brainstorming ideas. It is highly praised in companies, and like, well, let's do a brainstorming, like everyone who wants to get creative, like, let's do a brainstorming. And this principle of not criticizing is highly praised. But, and here comes Charlan Nemeth, and she did a study both in the United States and in France, so on different continents, just to prove her point. I found that to be wow. And she has found out that, like, so the assumption was that people will shut down if there is criticism of their ideas. So that was the theory that the author tried to just demolish. So she basically tried to demolish one of the principles of brainstorming. This is huge, like in the science world. And she did it. And in these 2 experimental conditions, I'll just tell you the conclusions. I will not enter into the experiment. Allowing debate and criticism led to significantly more, not fewer, ideas than the control conditions. So when people were allowed to just brainstorm very peacefully and not criticize, and nothing happened, nothing original happened. But on the other group, where people were encouraged and demanded to criticize, they were like over the top original, and the ideas were like flowing. There was a flow of ideas that really lacked in the non-criticizing group. So she says, like, the sacred rule of brainstorming, the rule not to criticize the ideas of others, is now in question. This could easily be another book to roast the brainstorming industry, because a lot of people are making money out of this brainstorming concept. So I found it really fascinating. And the author hits the nail on the head when she says, like, she was analyzing, why does disagreement opens our mind? Why? What happens? Like, why does it happen? And she says, like, disagreement just makes us question our position. I found this utterly simple yet utterly profound, in the sense that, yeah, there is a tiny dot of shade that is putting itself on your whiteboard of my opinion when somebody is disagreeing. I don't know, it just, I think it's something in our mind that likes coherence, and whenever coherence is challenged, it makes us question. And I think this is a good thing. Yeah, definitely. Part 3. So, part 3 of this book. Groupthink versus groups of thinkers. So we have seen that the quality of your thinking is definitely, and the originality of your thinking is definitely diminished in the group settings. So do not put yourself in a group if you want to be original. Rather go into a forest and meditate, or do something very, very small scale. So in this part, there is an exploration of the processes of consensus and dissent and their impact on decision making in ongoing groups and organizations. So she makes the transition from research to real life. So it is one thing to manipulate consensus in experiments, and another thing to see this operating in real groups. So I would say that this is like the perfect way to really like sustain a theory, to back it up not only with research done in isolated groups and so forth, but to really like follow the stream of your theory in real life. Very good. So chapter 6 from part 3 is group decisions, often in error, never in doubt. I definitely laughed on this one. So a definition for group thinking, which I found it funny, but I don't know, it's hilarious, but it's sad and dangerous in the same time. So straining for consensus is basically the definition of groupthink. So yeah, it's true, whenever a group gathers up, they just want to reach consensus. Yeah, they don't want to lose time unless they have a lot of time to just play around, but it doesn't happen very often in organizations. And there's a talk, a big talk about the one flaw, huge political flaw that happened in 1961, the US-backed invasion of Cuba at the Bay of Pigs. It was a huge strategical mistake. It embarrassed the whole United States. And there's a quote that I really liked. The group was highly intelligent, but it does not take stupid people to make stupid decisions. And I really like this one because, intelligent people can really make really stupid decisions. And that can be even JFK and his advisors, including like CIA directors, secretaries of state. Everyone was like guilty of a big major error. A thing, a detail to be taken from this kind of situations that are again, contradicting what we are seeing in today's society and what we have been taught. And yeah, it's gonna take a while to digest this information. A directed leader, one who makes his preference known at the outset, sets in motion a myriad of decision making processes that end in bad decisions. So, having a leader, something that we think it's good to have, but having a leader that on the onset they tell you, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and it's like casting like strategy and roles, it's like really bad. It does not stimulate the group. I think we have seen in history leaders that have taken like really bad decisions because they were like on the dictating role. Like they just, yeah, were like tyrants, and they did not allow anyone to disagree with them. So I think this is very useful. And I was thinking about just companies, I was thinking about schools, I was thinking about families. Like every time you think that assigning yourself in a leadership role where you know it all and you just bark orders, this is going to work very much at your disadvantage no matter where you are. And I think this is really, really vital information. I think about groups, and the danger of groups is that they either start with relative homogeneity of opinion or they manage to create it. So the purpose of a group is to reach consensus. So regardless of where this group is coming from, regardless if it's like male, female, regardless of the race, whenever you're gathering a group of people, like there is a pull of the group that will want to reach consensus. This is very, very dangerous. And hundreds of studies have documented the fact that a group of people who basically agree on the direction of a decision will become more extreme and more confident after discussion. This is the phenomena of polarization, which has been studied and researched in social psychology. Basically, what is this? Translated in human language. So, when you meet with someone who shares the same opinions as you do, you almost like stimulate each other, like to believe the same thing even more. Like, imagine two people that believe that living in this country is horrible. It's horrible. And they all, like both of them, they just criticize the country. The government is bad, the city, like everyone is bad, like, and they meet up. Like the peak of their experiencing this country as horrible, it peaks up, and they almost like entertain like this sort of escalation of their feelings. But in the same time, if two people that think that this country is good and is great and they meet up and they hold the same opinion, they escalate in thinking that, okay, yeah, so it's the same thing. Like if you, I don't know, if someone speaks poorly about their partner, let's say that, yeah, because this is very normal in real life. If someone has a bad opinion about their partner and they want to gossip with someone, which you should totally not do, but a lot of people do, and they will pick that one friend that believes the same thing, and if they meet up, they escalate so much in their opinion. Oh, my partner is so bad, yeah, he's so lazy, so trash, so blah blah blah. By the time that person ends up back home, they're like pumped and ready to just demolish the other person. Why? Because a group talk in which your opinions are confirmed, they manage to escalate the intensity of your initial feelings. This is very dangerous. this is very, very dangerous. So this is why the irony that people people most likely will never go to someone who disagrees with them. So someone who really hates this country, they will not vibe with someone who believes this country is good, because yeah, it would challenge their ideas. So they will pick someone who shares their ideas so they could be in misery together. So yeah, it's the human mind. It's definitely the human mind. And yeah. So group discussions, they lead you to become more extreme in your position, more extreme in your direction that you already favored. This is very useful for companies, for CEOs, for schools. Like, just look at the people that you're gathering for a meeting and look at their core beliefs that they have on that topic or on that matter. Because a lot of people, like, they organize meetings in which they are supposed to brainstorm or they're supposed to reach some magical formula, but they gather 10 people, and out of 10 people, 10 people believe the same thing. So the irony is that no original idea is ever reached. There's like, and they become even more extreme and more convinced in what they should do. This is failure. This is failure, and it's happening a lot in our society. And yeah, it's really not good. I really have to tell you something that really intrigued me. There was some research, again research, done by Kurt Lewin. It was part of the effort during World War II. So I'm gonna short it up, but there was like a food shortage during the war. Basically, the populace was urged to stop consuming so much protein, because there was a shortage of protein sources like lamb, beef, pork. So yeah, it was not a popular demand to ask people to start eating like organs, liver, brain, meats, tongue. And this guy was pure genius. What did he do? So you can try to convince people in two ways. You can lecture them, like, okay, I'm gonna gather 10 people and explain them the situation with the protein and lecture them and tell them how to pick the right thing and everything. But this guy was even more brilliant when he noticed that his lectures weren't working. What did he do? He proposed that people gather in groups, in small groups, to discuss the issue and decide whether they would do it. So this solved the problem in a brilliant way. He no longer had to go to lecture to every like big group. And he noticed one thing. Compared to the lecture method, the discussion method won hands down in inducing the change in behavior. Participants in discussion groups tried the organ meat 5 times as often as those exposed to various lectures. So a lecture can make you more inclined to do something, but it is the group discussions where members lean in one direction that makes their views more extreme. So if you gather like more people, like 3 or 4 people, and you get them to talk on something, and you know that they like at least one agrees on something, you can definitely like manipulate things. And it's again very, very scary. So why is this happening? Why is this happening? And we are social creatures. Everything can be explained because of the biology of our brain and what makes us human, basically. So this phenomenon of polarization, why does it occur? It's there are like 2 theories explaining it. It's the persuasive arguments theory. So this theory basically states that a group discussion favors the direction that most people have. We want to go along with what most people do. Human nature. And the other theory is social comparison. We want to be favorably viewed by members of our group. So we look to see what they value. So as you can see, why is it even harder to be a disagreeer, like someone who disagrees? It is like going against your very nature, your social nature, that wants, like, it wants you to get along, it wants you to be part of the crowd. Even if you're miserable, at least you have that feeling of belonging. So those who, like, I would be very fascinated to read like a follow-up of this book on the neurochemistry and the psychology of the mentality, the brain structure of a dissenter, because you basically have to go against your human, like one of your core needs on like Maslow, a pyramid of needs, like that need to belong. And it's very human to want that. So this makes it like even harder to be someone who disagrees, and makes me gain even more appreciation for those who dare to do so. Yeah, there is a key information. No, there's a key, like it's not an information, there's a key detail, super detailed, mega detail, that you have to take from this chapter about groups that really blew me away. It's about the fact that groups only share the information they have in common. What does this mean? It means that individuals in a group are less likely to share information that is unique to them. So groups do not, I repeat, groups do not pool effectively their information. So groups have a biased sample of information. This was wow for me, because it contradicted this very rooted idea that groups, if the group is big, if there are a lot of people in the group, there must be a lot of information, right? A lot of us are really inclined to believe so. But as I found this out, it's like, no, a group can miss huge chunks of information because the members that have some unique pieces of information that maybe doesn't make them popular, they exclude it. So groups, they might lack a lot of information actually, and they're biased, and this explains why they make the wrong decisions. It's wow. Another experiment, it was done by another not by the author, but another like set of researchers, and pretty much groups reached poor decisions because they shared the information that they only had in common, and they were given different information, so they end up with the wrong decision just because they didn't talk all of the information. It's like if two people are receiving like multiple solutions to the same problem, but maybe they receive it with different letter or in a different way, and they try to pull it down, like to pull, like to put it like all together. But if they do not have the courage to bring all of the solutions they received, they will end up giving a poor answer. So this, yeah, wow. Also, subsequent research shows that unique information is also less likely to be repeated during the course of a discussion. Yes, I can definitely agree to this, because I know that in a group talk, and a lot of us know this, that in a group talk, like we all talk what we know about. If someone is mentioning like one detail, or yeah, it's forgotten because it is not disputable. And it's not disputable because not a lot of people know about it. And what people do not know about, they do not talk about, oddly enough. So the tendency for groups to discuss primarily the information they have in common is one reason why groups can move too easily to consensus. Yeah. So to have a disagreement is to have a minority opinion, and that information is unique. So when you disagree, you bring in a unique information, and as you can tell, the unique information is usually cast aside in groups. This is why, and this is another reason why dissenters and people who disagree, they are less likely to influence unless they stick to their grounds. They stick to their grounds and pushing that information up front, like that unique information, until it sticks, you know? It's really, really important. Wow. Very, very important idea that I underlined in here, and I think it's vital for the society that we're living on. Information held by the majority tends to be grossly overrepresented and repeated, making all the difference in the decision making. One piece of unique information could change the whole picture and the whole decision. And whether in the realm of justice or politics or hiring, this can have long-term consequences. Yeah. And there's an application for cultures and organizations, in the sense that if you create an environment where you welcome authentic disagreement, you can have a better decision making and even innovation. So I think disagreement is something that should definitely be welcomed if you want to really make a difference practically. Chapter 7, it's a very interesting chapter about an element that has been very popular, just like the brainstorming technique, the playing the devil's advocate technique. So the chapter 7 is about better decisions, dissent, diversity, and devil's advocate. So there's a long talk. I'm not going to enter in it because it's really hot topic, and this could take days. The case of O.J. Simpson. Very, very interesting. It was the racial part. So when the trial was held in a certain part and the jury was predominantly white, he was found guilty. When the trial was moved in another part of the state, and the members, the jurors were of a certain race, he was found not guilty. This was very vital information, very vital information, and the author states that what would have happened if the group would have had more diversity. That's something we will never find out, but yeah. And the case of O.J. Simpson does not only underline the fact that you need diversity in a group, like different genders, different races, different backgrounds. It's not enough. So a fact that a group includes men and women, a mix of races and ethnicities, and so forth, it doesn't ensure heterogeneity of opinion or perspective. What's really important is that those people have the guts to stand up. So it does not matter if you have 10 people of 10 different races. If they do not have the courage to stand up, it will not matter that you have a very diverse group. Yeah. There's a very interesting detail that really blew me away, that can express a bit of the company, of the big corporate culture. Studies show that diversity of demographics can lower morale and bonding, which many organizations try to avoid. It can also reduce satisfaction and even retention. That's very, very interesting. So it's very ironic that we tend to function better and bond better with people that look like us, think like us, but the danger of that is that we never grow from that. Very, very interesting. There is a tip of strategy given by a world leader in branding called Catherine LeLong, and she says that her teams are intentionally made up of members from very different backgrounds. So when you hire people and you want to build a very successful team, it's very good to bring people not only like different demographics, but very different backgrounds, very different, because they come with different approaches. Yeah. So the bottom line is that we might want a mix of people on our teams. We might want people who vary in age, race, gender, sexual orientation, and maybe educational background, height, weight, personality. But the real engine for good decision making is dissent. So if you don't encourage those diverse people to disagree, they're good for nothing. Yeah. There is a concept of integrative complexity, the ability to see both sides, and there's a talk about the biggest study about the value of dissent. That study was made in the hospitals in the United States. The researchers of these studies, they surveyed the entire population of hospitals in 3 states. So this was like a big study. They concluded that it is often valuable to have a good fight in decision-making teams. Among the tactics of the best teams are that they work with more rather than less information. They develop multiple alternatives to enrich debate. They resolve issues without forcing them to consensus. So I think this pretty much sums up what you really need to know, that you need to have more information in a group. So if you are forced to work in a group and you have to work with the group and you can't escape the group, at least work with huge chunks of information, like gather as much information as possible and do not rush to reach consensus. Like this is like the biggest peril of groups, the rush to reach consensus. Avoid it at all cost. Yeah. Yeah. So there is a merit of the people who disagree, that they challenge us to think divergently, to think outside of the box. And unfortunately, they pay a high price. The people who disagree, they are hated. They are like invoking feelings of anger. They make us angry. They are disliked. It's definitely, I don't know, it's such a big risk for your emotional well-being to be someone who disagrees, that you must have a really tough personality, and most likely you really have to believe in what you fight for. Otherwise, I don't think you would be able to resist to all of the criticism, all of the bullying. And I think this is what made the difference for the for the people that truly disagreed. Because yeah, if you don't believe in what you stand for, in the end you will back down. So yeah. Okay, so the devil's advocate. This is a fake it's a fake dissent, like a fake disagreement. The devil's advocate is a technique that it is still used in order to stimulate that kind of divergent thinking, but without like, it's fake. You know why it's fake? And the author did a lot of research showing that not only it is fake and it does not produce results, but it also has like negative consequences in the end, like in the sense that the person playing the devil's advocate in the end starts to believe more in what they believe. So that's a negative consequence. So devil's advocate does not work because it lacks authenticity. The person that does a role play does not truly believe in what they like, even if they're like they're playing, like, and the authenticity, it lacks. This is why it's not effective, and it's actually even bad. And she said, like, the author said that when she presented her research done on devil's advocate and how bad is it, a Harvard professor that attended, let me tell her name, Dorothy Leonard, a Harvard Business School professor, she said that she was using this devil's advocate technique in her school, and she definitely reconsidered. And that's like, okay, if a harder professor like definitely reconsiders, then it's a real deal. But not only that, but disagreement has power only if it's genuine. So if you like fake it until you make it, doesn't work with disagreement. Like, no, because as you can tell, like, it comes with a lot of hatred. When you disagree, you will be hated, you will be vilified, you will be like crucified, like people will hate you. So if you're not authentic and if you don't truly believe in it, you will ditch it. You will not like, but if you truly believe something and like you really like to die for it, like nobody can stand in your way. Yeah. So yeah, the devil's advocate actually stimulated more thoughts in the participants that defended their original position. Yeah. So it's not good. It's a fake. It's a fake. So asking the person to play the devil's advocate eliminated the benefits for creative problem solving. So if the brain of a person has to role play, they no longer have the resources to use the same brain for creative problem solving. So it's a bad use of your brain, literally, to role play and to fake it. It's a bad use of that beautiful energy, brain energy. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes in the book, I have two favorite quotes that I underline, and this is one of them. So very short, but I think it's very useful. Learning and good intentions won't save us from biased thinking and poor judgments. A better route is to have our beliefs and ways of thinking directly challenged by someone who authentically believes differently than we. So having a PhD about the value of dissent and being super smart and super high schooled and super savvy, and it's not gonna help you that much, because training and education can only get you so far. But there's one thing to be formally trained, and there's one thing to be actually in the situation. Because it's very easy to say, okay, I'm very cool, I'm very calm, cool, collected, I'm like, yeah, I'm very like, I'm open, I'm very creative, I'm very, until someone challenges you in real life. So do search to surround yourself with people who dare to think differently than you. This is a very good message from this book that I have taken. And it's very hard to practice because we usually avoid people who just rub us the wrong way by disagreeing with us. So see, this is the human nature. It's like the same thing that will help you go out of your bubble and really see how much your knowledge and your education will really matter in real life, like in the ghetto. It will be this, to pick, to have the self-awareness in moments when you are challenged, to pick, to surround yourself with people that dare to disagree with you, but not in the sense that they bully you, that they mock you. No, no, they genuinely have just the courage to think differently, and they have arguments. It's like, you do not want those people who want to disagree with you just to annoy you or to push your buttons. You don't want those kind of people. You have nothing. Like, what can you can learn like how to contain yourself, but this is an important message I have taken from this book. Really learn to embrace this kind of people. At least one is enough, as you have seen. Like, at least one person in your circle, or maybe you don't have it, like maybe it's not physical, or maybe just a mentor, or maybe just an author, or maybe someone who just you don't like what they are saying because it contradicts your belief. Just try to do the exercise of being open. It can do a magic for you. Magic. This is a good one. So the conclusions, the last chapter, the final chapter of this book. So the underlying message of this book. So consensus. This is danger. So when you see consensus, we want to reach consensus. We want to reach to a harmonious run. It's like danger. So consensus, while comforting and harmonious as well as efficient, often leads us to make bad decisions. Dissent, while often annoying, is precisely the challenge that we need to reassess our own views and make better choices. Dissent is a liberator. And here is the critique of one of my favorite authors, Dale Carnegie. And there's the reference to his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the author says, and I agree with her, she has a good point, that we are continually advised to go along and get along. And many people say that, Dale said that to make a person to agree with you, just follow along with them. But he was working in sales. That works in sales. But in real life, in groups, his strategy is not okay. And I managed to see that. So as long as the disagreement is authentic and real and consistent, it becomes a mechanism for re-examining your position and looking more extensively for information. Information is really power. It is power because information helps you make decisions or lack of it. So if you broaden your horizons, you'll take better decisions. The author says what this book is not about. It's not about anger. So someone who disagrees is not an angry person. Unfortunately, I have seen this a long times, and I have also fallen victim of it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people fell victim to it, that they do not know how to be maybe assertive or just stand to your ground, but in firm, calm matter, because it makes the difference. A dissenter is a calm person, is someone who is very much in self-control. They're not all over the place. They do not scream and yell and shout. No, the dissenter is the respectful person who dares to have a different opinion, and they state it respectfully and with diplomacy, I would say. Yeah. So dissenters may provoke anger, but they are not expressing anger. So they are expressing an opinion or a perspective. So if you want to be effective, do not be angry. Do not resort to anger, but be consistent, because being consistent will pay off much more than being angry. Unfortunately, and I think this, again, I would love to see a book from this author on the psychological profile of a dissenter, of a good one on a bad one, because I think the reputation of people who disagree is a bit smeared by the attitude of those who did dare to disagree, but they lacked the emotional coolness. Like they lost it, they lost their temper, or they did not know how to be assertive, or they did not know how, yet just the tone. And a lot of the time I think that disagreements have this label of anger and, I don't know, aggressive vibes, just because not all people, although they disagree, they do not know how to communicate that disagreement in order to be effective. I think this could be an entire book, and not only that, it could be like a training, because people need to be trained. They need to know how to disagree. We live in a society where we do not have this muscle. It's a muscle to disagree. It's a muscle, and it's not trained, because in schools and ever, like they like agree, let's all solve the exercise through this way and through this way. Like we need to a bit like also work at the root of our society, because it's not specified in this book, but it's pretty clear that the preference for consensus and for group thinking comes from education. So we are biased because since we're babies, since we're children, we're taught to go along and get along. So if in schools we will dare to encourage pupils to express disagreement, they will know how to slowly manage themselves. I think disagreement is a muscle. Like to be able to disagree, maybe it's not a super talent, it's just a muscle that you have to work. And yeah, I hope Charlan will write another book about this. Yeah, so we have a lot to learn from people who think differently from us, the ones we might not seek as friends. Yeah. So do not seek friends only to validate what you already believe. There's a small remark in the end of the book, but I wish it would have been further developed, because I think it is key in the field of dissent research. There is such a field, disagreement research. And this very key thing is the following: people need to feel safe in expressing dissent in a group. This is mentioned at the end of the book, but I think it should have been at the beginning, or at least in the middle, because it changes the whole dynamic, because it adds up the element of safety. And this is huge. How do you create the element of safety in a group? How do you maintain it? How do you repair breaches of safety in a group? This is a whole dimension of disagreement and of strategy. And I think it should definitely be further studied. And the second favorite quote from my book, and with this it ends: the beginning of thought is in disagreement, not only with others, but also with ourselves. So yeah, dare to disagree with yourself. Like, okay, today I decided that I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna think that, but should I really be doing that? So this book is brilliant. I really loved it. I think it's one of the best books I have read on the power of saying no, in a way, because disagreement is like saying no, but I think it's more powerful than no, because no, it's a no, but a disagreement, it's opening something. It says no, it's not your way, but there's this way, and let's see where does it lead us. So I think, yeah, this is definitely a field that it's worth studying. It's definitely worth studying. The disagreement research, how to agree, how to disagree, and I think how to disagree could be an entire field of research that it's going to become even more important today, in today's culture, where, yeah, we all want to go along. We use filters to filter our lives, to filter our beliefs, to filter everything. We live now in a society where we need the power of disagreement more than ever, because that means to be authentic, and that means to be real. And it's even more necessary now than ever. When yeah, people lost their own inner voice to say when something is wrong. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.